So ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for taking the time to join me today on this webinar about Blu-ray authoring, licensing, and production, brought to you by our EasyBD 123 program here at Acutrack Incorporated. So before I get started with the webinar, I think it's only fair and appropriate that we give you an idea about who it is that's conducting the webinar, what it is that we're going to cover, and why we think we're qualified to do this webinar. So having said that, we're going to cover the who first. That's basically me. My name is Ashish Barman. I'm the Executive Vice President and CIO of Acutrack, Inc. And Acutrack is a company that's been in business since 1992, so about 18 years or so in the media business. And we've served thousands of clients when it comes to the entertainment industry for CDs as well as DVDs. And we started offering Blu-ray services back in 2008. And we have several titles under our belt and have done well with our Blu-ray production. And so we think we're sort of experts in the area. And we hope that you'll find our experience useful and this webinar useful for learning about Blu-ray authoring, production, as well as licensing. Which brings us to the next question, the what. So what we're going to be covering today is, of course, as the title mentioned, is Blu-ray authoring. And specifically in the authoring portion of the webinar, we're going to cover the planning and preparation of the authoring. And for those of you who don't know what authoring means, basically it is the process of creating the first master check disc or the master disc for the Blu-ray, so you can actually play it and check it and make sure it's working fine before you go to the production stage. So we're going to cover the planning and preparation of that. We're also going to cover the outsourcing criteria of finding the right authoring facility or authoring engineer for yourself. The next thing we're going to talk about is the licensing of Blu-ray, which is somewhat complicated, or it can become complicated if you don't have the right guide. And it's called AACS, so we're going to talk about what AACS is. And also, since I mentioned it is somewhat complicated or it can become complicated, we're going to try to figure out a way to make it very simple and make it easy for you to understand and hopefully take advantage of all the Blu-ray specs. The next thing we're going to talk about is the Blu-ray production aspect. And in that portion, we're going to cover how to find the right manufacturer for your Blu-ray product, how to get the best cycle time out of your Blu-ray production run, and get the best lead times, and also look at some value-added considerations when it comes to production. And then, of course, the why. We really feel that there's not enough information or understanding out there in the marketplace about Blu-ray yet, even though it's becoming quite a bit of, it's getting quite a bit of steam and it's becoming mainstream. And even the information published in some of the forums can be misleading and in some cases completely inaccurate. So we think this will hopefully help everybody to understand the Blu-ray publishing phenomenon in a very easy fashion. We want to share our experience. As I mentioned, we've been doing this for a couple of years, so we've been, we have quite a bit of experience with this thing and what we've learned over the couple of years from our clients, and from our experience, we want to share that with you. So hopefully, make life easier for you. And of course, want to make sure that you are ready for the Blu-ray marketplace, because it is the time for Blu-ray. It has won the obviously the format war against the HD DVD format, and it is here to stay. And if you are producing video today, most of your audience are probably expecting to get not only the standard definition version of your video, but also a high definition video. So if you are considering at all publishing any video titles or entertainment titles, the time is now to get into the Blu-ray bandwagon. So having said that, I'm going to move forward, and before we begin the rest of the webinar, just quickly cover some basics about Blu-ray itself. So what is a Blu-ray disc? Nothing fancy. Is simply a high-capacity, next-generation optical disc, very similar in shape and size and feel up to the DVD and CD disc, and just holds a lot more data. It was developed jointly by a bunch of Fortune 500, Fortune 100 companies, technology firms, including the likes of Sony, Panasonic, Disney, and Microsoft. A bunch of them involved in this whole development. And it was designed for three purposes. It was designed to basically enable recording, rewriting, and playback of high-definition video. The two types of physical types of Blu-ray discs that are available today in the marketplace are a single-layer Blu-ray disc, which holds 25 gigabytes of data, or in video terms, about 2¼ hours of high-definition video in good quality. And then there's a 50 gigabyte dual-layer disk, which holds about 4¼ hours of high-definition video with good quality. So what are the different formats? So we talked about the two physical types of the disk. Now what about the different formats for the disk? There are a couple of major formats, but there are literally 4. One of them is called Blu-ray audio video, which is BDAV, and that's a straight play disc. It has no menus, no navigation mechanism. It's normally used by independent filmmakers when they send screeners out to various film festivals. So when you put the disc in the player, it just plays the movie, and that's pretty much it. So pretty simple disc. The next format is called BDMV standard content, and this is a high-definition video and audio disc with graphics for menus and submenus, and it has a subtitle feature just like the DVD did, but it does not have any web-enabled feature or any multi-angle features. The third format is known as BDMV advanced content. BDMV advanced content holds pretty much all of the bells and whistles that the standard content does, but it also has a couple of cool features. Number one is the pop-up menu, and if you don't know what a pop-up menu is, I'll describe it briefly. So let's compare a DVD and a Blu-ray here a little bit. When you're watching a DVD disc and you're in the middle of a video and you want to jump to a particular chapter point, let's say, on that DVD disc, in order to get to the chapter point, if you don't know exactly where it is, you can keep hitting next, 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 or previous button on your remote control to keep guessing where you want to go. Or if you want to know exactly where you have to go, the only way to get there is to basically do a root menu call on the remote control, go back to the main menu, click on the chapter menu in most cases, and then find the right chapter, and then click on that chapter button to get to the right place. So it involves quite a bit of clicking around to get to the right place that you want to get to in the video stream. On the Blu-ray spec, there's a really neat feature called the pop-up menu that was designed in the spec, and there's a button on your remote control of your Blu-ray player that says pop-up menu, and when you click that button, even while the video is playing in the background, you get a menu that shows up on top of the playing video in the background. So it's overlaid on top of the video, and you can basically click on the point where you want to go off that menu with all the chapter points listed, and you click that one button and you're there. So it's a very neat feature. It's designed to make life easy for the end user and speed things up in terms of navigation. So that's a pretty cool feature of the BDMV advanced content. And of course, the next feature is the Java and the web content for additional features on the disk. The last format is, of course, a simple data disk, which is normally it's a BD-ROM disk. It just holds data files. It's normally used by large corporations or banks to store data, for example, or transactional data. Or in this example, it could hold maps of a GPS navigator, like entire world's map, and so on and so forth. So then that covers the formats of the Blu-ray. So now let's talk specifically about your product. Now, if you're planning to launch a title on Blu-ray, you have to first create the master disk, right? So we talked about what that was. That was called authoring of the disk. So how do you plan for the authoring of the disk, right? So the first step in planning for the authoring is first to understand all the feature sets, the stuff that we just talked about, namely, the static and motion menu, the buttons, the chapter points, the pop-up menu. We just talked about, how many audio tracks you may have on your disk, whether it's French, German, Spanish, and any of the subtitle features or multi-angle features that you may require. So once you understand the feature set, now you can basically close your eyes and open your mind. And I mean that literally. The best way to plan for your disk is to really think about, imagine that your disk is done, and you as the user is putting that disk in the player. And when you close your eyes and imagine what's going to happen next, you can easily plan out the steps for planning your authoring. As for example, you may choose to have a couple of previews of your upcoming titles as a first play. After those previews are done, you may decide that you may want to have the standard FBI warning or a custom-designed FBI warning or Interpol warning if it's an international title. You may want to have your company logo followed by that, and then go to the main menu. So basically, imagine the steps that the disk is going to take before the user has to interact with it, and that will and jot those things down, as that'll make it really easy to interact with your authoring engineer, and of course, it'll make it easier for you to plan everything. The next step is to look at color. Color is also important because you want to make sure that the first view of the disk is pleasant to the eye. You don't want to have extremely vivid colors that kind of distract people from the main content, or or even colors that may flicker or or not show up so well on the screen. So, for example, bright reds and bright whites may not be the best choice of colors on the color palette for your disc. So that's an important thing to consider. Keep it simple. The last thing you want to do is when somebody really wants to watch your content, and when they put your disc in, that you totally confuse them with an extremely extravagant navigation design or menu design where they can't figure out where they're going. So you want to try to keep it simple and elegant so it makes life easy for the end user. They can get to what they want to do. Total running time. This is very, very important, and I mention that because a lot of times when we get projects here, I remember authoring this for people, they forget to tell us a lot of things. That, for example, they wanted to include a bloopers section or an outtake section or a delete a scene section. And what happens if you don't consider that ahead of time is if you bring that at the end of the cycle, then it's difficult for us as authoring team, as an authoring team to plan out the proper bit rate or the bit disk capacity for your disk, and for yourself also. If you have 20 minutes of deleted scenes and 20 minutes of outtakes and 10 minutes of other stuff, you want to make sure that all that is accounted for, so you can figure out how much time you have total in hand, and also what kind of disk you're going to need. Whether you're going to need a 25 gig disk or whether you might need a 50 gigabyte disk for your capacity. The last thing you want to do is lower the quality of the video. So that's a good thing to consider, the total running time. And of course, the last thing is the source assets. Most people are editing in Final Cut Pro or Avid or what have you today. So you want to make sure all your source assets are prepared properly and they're labeled properly. And of course, all the audio for all the various feeds of this different video streams are also normalized, so they all sound the same.